Welcome to Carver Conversations at the intersection of geopolitics, AI, and law. Today we have with us Ms. Ankita Sabharwal. I'll introduce her in a moment. Before that, today we're going to do a deep dive into privacy issues that are emerging because of AI. A lot of assumptions went into the crafting of the law and how the discussion itself around privacy evolved around specific data artifacts like PII and so on. Many of the assumptions are being violated today by the new technology. It is blurring jurisdictional boundaries, definition boundaries, and so on. To discuss all of that, we have Ankita with us, who heads data privacy at a large, well-known and storied firm, Chadha Chadha in India. She's a rising star in the legal community in India. I mean, every other week I see a new award for Ankita. So it was very kind of her to take time out of her busy schedule to join us. Ankita,
Thank
in her role as head of data privacy, helps companies navigate the intersection of data technology and regulation. She's known for her sharp regulatory insight, practical approach, and advises businesses on building privacy and AI governance frameworks that are not just compliant but also resilient and future ready. We'll dive into some of these details, especially what the emerging concerns are from the tech community itself. And with that, let's dive in. Today's was a phenomenal day. Like the day opened with a massive attack on the AWS data center in UAE and also Aramco refinery in Saudi Arabia. These were unthinkable a few years back. This is on top of everybody's mind. Anta, any quick reactions before we get into what would be considered a normal conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to begin with, it's extremely unfortunate, the times that we're living in, because now the cost of war is just not physical anymore, right? It's cyber, it's digital, it's a lot more. It's not your physical, deaths. Apart from that, apart from the human lives which are going to be lost, during this time, it is the consequences and implications are going to be far fetched. So, with the recent bombing, today that we saw at the AWS center, firstly, I think this is very strategic because, of course, while, there are radical bombings which are happening and, they may be just, the AWS center may just have been one of those, areas of bombing. But I do believe that now the consequences and implications are going to be far, because now suddenly the data would have moved to another country, because as we know, right, cloud servers, they're going to move data like this. Which jurisdiction would that data move to? It's at a time, like this, it's extremely unthinkable. Also, who will have access to that data when countries are at war? This is something which can really change the dynamics of war. So these are implications which I think, right now maybe it's not the time, because things are extremely fragile and very dynamic. But in a couple of days, when things hopefully will settle, these are the long term implications which nations will have to discover.
Yeah, for example, in this case, right, let's say the systems are designed to automatically switch between data centers. Because of the complexity of the systems, modern systems that we are building, maybe because if it is a collection of 20 applications, maybe we have analyzed three applications or five applications deeply for both from a data integrity and availability perspective. But we know that there is a long tail and not every detail is worked out for all the remaining applications. So challenges that I see is that when they switch the data center and you have not accounted for the regulatory and jurisdictional aspects of that particular data set, now suddenly you are faced with unexpected situations, legal issues that might arise. In your experience, is discipline of thinking through data integrity, privacy, and so on, is it consistently applied across all applications, or are you seeing what I hypothesize that it's actually uneven? Because of limited resources, they focus on small, and this kind of attacks actually deals with a much larger range of problems.
No, absolutely. This is unprecedented. Of course, the systems and integrations are meant for foreseeable situations. And normally, times like these, they defy everything that can be foreseen. So, of course, you're absolutely right. The capacity, the volume, with which this is going to happen is way too large. So, having said that, I do believe it's rather premature for me right now to comment, because it will take a couple of days before we see the implications. But there are a couple of things which I am able to correctly foresee. Is there is going to be a lot of regulatory and governance risk now. There are certain countries which do seek data localization. Of course, we are again at a time when these things probably are not a priority, but 2 months from now, when data of citizens of one country will be free floating around different jurisdictions, this will become a huge issue. So yeah, I mean, like I said, cost of today's wars is much beyond what was traditionally seen as war. Today's wars are digital, they're infrastructure wars.
Yes.
So these wars are actually more on your computers and keyboards than they're taken up physically. So yes, that's what I see right now.
No, absolutely. The leadership prerogative today is moving from creation of value to creation of organization systems and processes that are resilient across all of this. And thinking through, maybe one thought that I had, one reaction that I had is maybe there will be a Mina plus one as the default configuration, which is you will have across two jurisdictions that you would have pre-identified and worked out, because these are not decisions that this will have huge ramifications if your customers data is floating around, right? Especially given the all of these applications, for example, in the UAE data center, many of the applications are blockchain related applications, so these are almost global by definition. Anyway, so we'll watch that thread and see what new challenges emerge. But let's get back to another major vector, which is the AI. So here I want to deep into what is changing with respect to the definition of privacy. If you look at the AI applications that are blurring all of these boundaries, and we are building systems that are so intelligent that they know you more than you know yourself, what exactly are we protecting?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Traditionally, personal data was always the information that I gave you. But in today's time, personal data is what do you know about me? It is now extremely unlikely that I gave you this, and it's more likely that you inferred it. With AI, there is so much of inference happening that it completely defies the traditional sense of privacy. What we're seeing in today's time is that, I'll give you very basic examples. Earlier, your personal data would be maybe your health records, your diagnostic records. It could be your insurance, policies. But now, these things can be inferred. My health data can be inferred with the Swiggy orders that I'm making. My credit worthiness can be inferred, by how much time I'm spending in making impulsive purchases. So there is a lot of inference happening, and that definitely defies how privacy was seen traditionally. Also, in today's time, like I said, sometimes it the purpose, right, most of the time outpaces disclosure, because you don't know what your certain amount of data will do in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
What will it be used for? So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The traditional pillars of privacy are definitely diluted with AI. AI does so much beyond the foreseeability factor which existed, in traditional sense of privacy, which was purpose limitation, data minimization, legitimate uses. All of these were foundational traditional principles of privacy. But now with AI integration, I think the traditional sense of privacy is completely diluted. Laws will have to now outpace themselves and come to understand and govern these AI systems, because traditionally all the global laws, I don't think they even come close to how quickly AI is moving.
Correct. It's not just the pace, right? Some of the fundamental assumptions themselves are being violated. The fact that I can learn about you without having a specific bit of detail, because that is enough for the purpose that I am going after. See, a lawyer almost sees privacy as a right. Engineer sees it as a property of data. I
Yeah.
also see the issue of different people having a different understanding of the requirement of privacy itself, and we are leaving it to a lot of individuals judgment in this thing, which makes it very tricky, because your application is evolving, the people building it are excited about the applications and not about the full responsibilities that come with it. So, if you step back a little bit and look at the regulatory response to all of this, what has been the flavor of conversation within the legal and regulatory community as far as how to deal with this brand new situation that has been presented to them?
So you know how I look at it, and the kind of conversations we're seeing more and more, at the company board tables, with the management, with product teams, with engineers. It's a lot about how to govern it, because there is so much automated decision making that, earlier queries were that, oh, can I train my model on this data set? But now the queries have completely changed to, but my model, apart from say doing risk profiling, is also capable of doing these things. How do we govern it? So the traditional conversations have definitely changed. Now I see more and more scrutiny with, in terms of vendors. Earlier there were 50 vendors companies were working with, but now, because they understand that the responsibility is on the data fiduciary or the data controller, we're seeing a lot of vendor scrutiny also coming in. And I think one of the factors which I do believe, most of the companies are reassessing, is that is consent enough,
Hmm.
or is just purpose limitation enough, or just data minimization enough? Do we need to have the technical controls like encryption, this and that? These are bare minimum controls. Earlier, privacy was seen, data privacy was seen as more of a legal job, because you would get your contracts changed and you would have those templatized things. But now it's a lot more. It's a very techno legal job. So we're seeing engineers and lawyers working together more and more. We're seeing engineers and deployers working together more and more to understand the magnitude of a model, to understand the capability of a model. Because until we know how much and what it can do, it's very difficult to govern it. So we're seeing a lot of these risk assessments which are happening, in the companies across the globe. And now with India's, Digital Personal Data Protection Act, of course, India is still very nascent as a country. It is going to take time. GDPR has been there since, almost 9 years now. And GDPR was not Europe's first data protection law. Europe has had,
Yeah.
data protection law since centuries. So India is still at a nascent stage, but these conversations around AI and regulation are just, now that constitutes almost 90% of my work. Till about 2 years ago, this was, I was doing more of, your regular contract and this and that. But now almost 90% of work is going through SaaS models, understanding it, governing, trying to, give advisory for governance, all of that.
No, absolutely. This touches upon something that I heard a few days back, which is there is now a new role. This is especially the engineers and the product managers in the audience should pay attention to it. The new role is called product counsel. The idea is not just that we will make products, but products that will withstand the scrutiny of the law across geographies. So it's a very interesting new hybrid role. We saw the first few individuals who have been hired under this new title, but we should see that more in future. But coming back to one of the you touched upon several different aspects. The first thing that I'm interested in dipping into is this whole question of consent that assumes that the end users have an understanding, they have free will when they are giving their consent. They know when they are giving a consent, and they know what they are giving consent for, and so on. One of the challenges that I see with AI is that you don't have any of these things. The little app that is advising my mother on travel or one particular recipe of some sort, it has its own incentives, and there is no one point where my mother is giving a consent, or that she even knows that she is giving a consent. Now, I personally feel that that idea of consent and free will itself has to be revisited in the presence of super intelligent machines that we are interacting with. So, is that which is the thread that is having the most energetic conversations as far as the various aspects of this privacy is concerned? Which is attracting the most amount of your energy and your peers' energy?
So, first I'd like to talk a little about consent. Like you said, consent was based on the architecture of forcibility. Where things were moving in the traditional sense, purpose was defined, you knew who the end users were, all of that. It actually, to a certain extent, I believe, assumed temporal stability. But now with inference uses and the amount of inference that AI can do, I think consent itself cannot weigh the burden of AI governance alone. uh,
Agree.
that oh, I've taken consent, now I don't need to worry about anything, now I don't need to bother about having my privacy infrastructure in place, things like that. Now that's not going to work. In terms of the conversations, I think now, ranging earlier, these conversations were more in the in house teams of companies where lawyers were discussing it. But now I think we are seeing a lot more from management. So, okay, now there's also a situation that your model was trained, say, in California, it was deployed in Singapore, hosted in India, and probably the end user is somebody in Cambodia, right? So there is just so much of jurisdictional challenge here. We're looking at so many jurisdictions that now most of these companies are global in nature. They're not looking at one market, they're looking at
Yep.
expanding across the globe. So, these conversations are coming from the management more and more. Okay, but our model actually has been trained by a set of individuals sitting maybe in New York, and but our end users could be somebody in India. So I think the conversations around consent, around how to just govern their systems generally, is now tricking top down more and more.
And it
Earlier,
is what is the driver for the CEO's concern? Is it legality? Is it responsibility? Is it just that if the laws change, that they have to be responsive? What is the motivation of the leadership when they're thinking about this? Why is it risen beyond the usually the general counsel, the regulatory affairs, the privacy officer? This is where the conversation used to be. Why has it become a boardroom issue?
I think it's a mix of reputational damage. It's definitely the kind of penalties which these acts come with. And I think it's more to do with the fact that companies now are also, responsible AI. These are things that companies want to do because primarily that just enables them to have a greater footing in the market. As you know, privacy lawyers, we've been traveling across the globe for years until 2024. The first thing any other country lawyer would ask us, oh, but when is India getting its own law? And we would be like, hey, well, things are going to happen and it will actually come out. And after a point in time, we could see that India was being looked down upon. because India is one of
Yes,
the
no.
biggest,
Hmm.
one of the biggest markets, and not having your own data law. So since 2024, we're seeing that change. We're seeing that now India is seen in a better light, at a better footing. So I think for companies also, definitely, deterrence with these huge penalties, there is huge deterrence, but also reputational damage. The kind of reports that GDPR enforcement has come in with, kind of stock declines these companies have seen. And in India also, a recent diagnostic lab faced a major data breach, after which there were huge revenue declines. So I think companies are getting more and more aware about it, and of course they're trying to assess the, there's always this conversation that uh, should we prevent, or should we spend the cost in rectifying, because legal is always, was traditionally always seen as a cost of compliance. It was always a cost for
Yeah.
companies that, oh, now this is coming, now we have to do that. But I think the Data Protection Act has really changed that notion. Companies are seeing compliance as a reputational advantage. They are.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not just here, right? Globally, as the concerns explode across the world, definitely this is a front and center conversation. For example, I was at the AI summit where there were a number of conversations, especially involving child safety and so on. You could see the degree to which the audience was animated. They really, really were concerned about where this is going and in how this will morph, because now it is touching everybody's lives. So it is it's not just reputational issue; it will become a social issue.
I totally agree with you. And just to add on to that, we always say that, oh, why is Europe so mature when it comes to data governance? We have to look at the history of a country to understand that Europe has had a history of profiling.
Hmm.
Individuals in Europe
Yes. Hmm.
know the cost of their data. In India, the colonial hangover is dead. Our generation, we have no memory about it. And, India faced colonialism throughout. So I do believe that, Indians were at an individual level not very concerned about their data till a couple of years ago. But now, with so much information, around the globe, they're understanding the cost of data. And that also pushes companies to comply, because now individuals want to know that if I am uploading my boarding pass on DigiYatra, who is what is DigiYatra, where is my information going? So these are conversations which are now happening at an individual level.
Yeah, yeah. DigiYatra would be seen as a government organization. People are actively digging up the beneficial owners of DigiYatra, the corporate structure,
Yeah.
and there is definitely activism on that front. So there are two particular threads, right? One is that I know that you consult with folks around the world. In the last 18 months, this has ramped up quite a bit. All of these AI deployments. The other thing that we are simultaneously seeing is a shrinking of the lifetime of companies and products. So even if I understand what a particular product is doing, by the time you understand it's already life cycle of the product itself has ended. So, what have you observed over the past 18 months, and what is the flavor of today's conversation? What do you see the conversation to be, in the next 6 months?
And that's a very interesting question, because earlier, companies would bring in lawyers when they're just about, nearing the product launch. That's when they would be like, hey, can you just do a due diligence and let us know if
And
everything is.
just sign the dotted line.
Yeah, yeah, but now that's changing. We're seeing more and more companies, uh, engaging other technology lawyers from the inception of product development. So like you're saying,
As it
these,
should be. Hmm.
yeah, like you're saying, these product councils, they're just an in-house counsel who's going to advise you from the inception of an idea to. So like you're saying, of course, the lifespan of products are getting shorter, because now, like I'm saying, AI is outpacing itself. you know so but it's very important that even if you're looking at a shorter lifespan of a product, you will still have to have the same level of compliance. So the best way to go about it is have a technology lawyer from the very beginning be involved. Look at a lawyer as a part of your development team and not a person who's sitting there to create hindrances, because traditionally that's how lawyers were looked at. Oh, this person is just going to stop it. Lawyers would be given like ultimatums that this contract needs to go, you have to give a go ahead. But now that's completely changing. And I think one thing which I'm seeing more and more, that's probably now how AI companies are moving. I'm seeing a lot of fusion of AI. Earlier I would feel that companies were operating more in silos. So we had AI in healthcare and AI in finance and say AI in one particular domain. But now I'm seeing a lot of cross fusion. I'm seeing that a healthcare company would probably be working with a food app as well to promote say better food purchases, things like that. So we're seeing a lot of fusion of AI, and AI is not working in silos anymore. So it makes it even more important to have somebody involved from the very beginning, because every domain is going to bring its own risks and challenges. So these are the conversations. And of course, last 2 3 years, I would not say just 18 months, last 2 3 years, we've seen Gen AI, really pick up. And that's changed the game. That's changed the game for all sectors. So a lot of regulation around that. And a lot of now, companies are trying to understand what next. What next? Okay, we've reached this. What next? So constantly, like one day there is going to be one product which is going to blow up, and next day there's going to be something else. So it's just very, very fast. And laws can never evolve that fast. Realistically, if we look at it, laws are based around a lot of contemplation, deliberation. But AI is borderless. AI is outpacing. AI is completely, the idea about AI is just extremely fast. So law can never, just be at pace with it. But yes, we need to catch up. We
We'll
need
come
to.
to that global AI and privacy coordination,
Yeah.
regulatory coordination in a moment. But if you double click on the coordination between the legal teams and the technology and product and the business teams of an organization, I have seen a very significant shift in the lawyer's attitude itself. I was interacting with some of them infrequently, but of late I've been interacting a lot more frequently. It used to be very siloed, arm's length conversation and all semi-adversarial. There was like a touch of that tension between the legal teams and other teams. And I think what I see folks like you doing is actually creating a lot more of a free-flowing conversation between the legal team and the product team, without which this cannot be solved. This new class of problems that we are dealing with. So I'm glad that you are leading the way and you are able to frame the conversation as in a very constructive way, I think, for the entire community. I know that at the ITEC Law Summit, there were many young lawyers who are looking up to you for the how to develop the both the attitude, the approach, as well as the confidence to be able to do all of this. So I'm glad that
I'll have to say that, now lawyers, I think our degree has to include marketing, has to include product development, because we're doing so much more of that. The
yes.
conventional law, it's completely gone. I don't think the last time I picked up a jurisprudence book, because I'm just learning about technology, every day I'm just reading about a now, Anthropics come up with this, and now, this is a new API, and now this is happening, because we have to keep pace with what's happening. Because lawyers today, I think all lawyers will have to understand technology. The kind of pace with technology is getting integrated in our livelihoods as well. Legal tech is such a huge thing that we cannot now not understand tech that well, and that
Absolutely.
enables us to also assist these companies, because now we're understanding the technology better, so we can be better facilitators of governance. Earlier, it would be very difficult for some lawyers to understand what's the tech about. Only the science graduates, or those who were probably doing patent laws, were the ones who knew about the technology, but others were just like, okay, just brief me and I'll go argue.
It is
But
somebody
now,
else's responsibility. Let us hand us off. I
yeah,
think
we
there
were
is
just
an
taking care of the legal part of
yeah.
it. But now I think, from the very inception, like I said, companies engage lawyers, and the conversation is about, hey, I have this idea in mind, and these are the countries I intend to sort of launch in. So can you tell me what are the compliances I need to do? And then we understand the product, we do like a due diligence of the idea itself. And I think then we're in a better position, because if companies come to us just before product launch, we're literally just and signing the dotted line and being like, okay, these are the things, if you can do now, do it. But most of the things cannot be done. So even for uh, technology legends like you'd understand that there are certain things, when the product is ready, you cannot integrate. So that goes with the
No, no,
legal design too.
some of these choices are deeply architectural in nature. You have to bake it in right at the beginning. So, engineers and the product managers in the audience, I think as this blending of the technology and legal happens, there is no solution that will not have a very significant regulatory, legal, and political exposure going forward. Much like how legal ecosystem is emerging and understanding much more deeply technology ecosystem, there is an equivalent from the technology side where you have to deeply understand the concerns and the responsibilities that are carried by the organization when you design the products. And therefore this conversation is actually fairly important, and I would encourage in the leadership, especially the CTOs and heads of engineering, to reach out to Ankita and her peers early and often, to be able to build something that is not just robust against legal tests, but also more importantly, it is now it will protect your reputation and your market access that you have, that your customers give you, because you will be taken seriously, right? Because even the customers today understand the complexities of all of these, and if you are not both seen as understanding and doing what is right, and especially because our audience is global, they are looking at all the products, and they can compare against the best of the breed. So I would encourage the engineers and product folks on this channel to be able to reach out to Ankita and her peers to discuss this much more deeply, and of course educate them on the aspect of this global coordination, right? It is incredibly hard to develop products when the jurisdictions are fragmenting. So the challenge then becomes, if different people have different interpretations of privacy, that's a big issue. What is the flavor of conversations? I know that you recently were in London, you were interacting with some global peers of yours. What is the plan to harmonize these laws so that product development becomes like realistic, and not we are not chasing like 50 different laws?
Yeah. Typically how we're seeing work coming in now is that, a client is, say, based out of London. They're going to engage their local counsel in London and give a mandate that I'm looking at, launching this product in these 10 jurisdictions. Now the local counsel will reach out to their connects or their partners in those 10 jurisdictions and say, well, this is the product, and this is the advice the client is looking at. So if you could, based on your understanding and your expertise in the regional law, advise them. Then they will take those 10 different advisories, and then they will come up with a global compliance plan, because it's just easy. like I'm saying, today I can advise you on the CCPA, in the US, or the GDPR in Europe. But as a company, you would want to double check it from a local council there. Similarly, people who want to launch in India, a US council giving them advice on DPDP does not make sense. So what we're seeing is that clients are also looking at harmonizing advisory. They don't go to 10 different councils and have like 10 different
Yeah.
opinions. Apart from that, I think, one more challenge of, when it comes to different jurisdictions is the clients itself, right? Some countries may have, this requirement of data localization, some countries do not. Some companies will have a different principle. Like in India, now this whole new requirement of a consent manager, it's unheard of, in any other jurisdiction. But in India, this requirement has existed even in RBI. The RBI Act spoke about account aggregators who are actually consent managers now under the new law.
Mm.
So how, companies want is that they want to have like one plan, 10 different jurisdictions. They want to see what are the laws which are converging. Then they're set. If you have like 80-90%, and that's bound to happen, 80-90% of global laws will converge unless you're looking at a very extreme jurisdiction, right?
I
So
think the issue will not be common cases like e-commerce and
yeah,
so on, where everybody has somewhat uniform understanding. But let's say it gets into some of bio and these kinds
yeah,
of tricky territories where there is no case law, there is no precedent, and so on. Like imagine implants in your brain,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where, even there is no equivalent in
yeah.
many jurisdictions. It sounds like what is in order to do business now, there will have to be one is organization like you said, where some of the complexity will be absorbed by the legal community itself. Organize themselves into coalitions, networks, or single global organization, which is able to give a simplified interface to the end business team. That is one possibility. The second thing that I'm also seeing, because now I'm frequently talking to lawyers, I think lawyers are also rethinking in terms of the tech stack for themselves in order to facilitate this. And as the norms get interpreted, reinterpreted in new geographies, they need to be able to keep track. So they're looking at new tooling, and that's where my conversations are. So what I know is that this regulatory complexity, especially the global regulatory complexity, is something on top of both the end user's mind as well as lawyer's mind. And I foresee interesting new cross-border legal entities and new ways to engage in order to speed up this whole process. Now, as we wrap this up, any quick thoughts on where do you think this conversation will go 6 months, 12 months from now? Let's say we get GPT-7 or Claude, 6 God level and so on. What do you see are the new privacy challenges that you think we will be discussing 6 months or 12 months from now?
No, I think 6 or 12 months from now, we won't be talking, our bots would be, to each other. Of course, there are, like I'm saying, Gen AI, right? Now, there are just so many, use cases of Gen AI which are now coming up, which were earlier almost unheard of. I'm seeing the next 6 to 12 months, especially with the government, not just our government, governments across the globe funding and pumping so much money into AI. I'm seeing some exponential, technology breakouts because
Yeah.
as we speak, there are certain companies that personally, we're working with, and the kind of tech that they're developing in this space, it's unprecedented, unheard, and has the capability to really change the game. So of course the challenges would be newer as the tech is evolving. Challenges will also evolve. But the good part is that I'm seeing more and more Indian courts, and I can talk about India, of course, globally as well. But Indian courts, they're recognizing the challenges which are coming, with AI, and courts and judges, they're educating themselves about it. So I think enforcement will just get easier with time, because right now I do believe that enforcement is a challenge. When you try to talk about some of the AI models, when you try to argue, of course there is limited understanding, but now even like us lawyers, judges are also upskilling themselves, regulators are upskilling themselves. The biggest factor here is that we're seeing so much information coming from regulators about governance, and that may not be enforceable, may just be advisory, but that shows that the government is recognizing the impact and the challenges that AI brings with it. So yeah, very very
But what
interesting.
I see is ever more complex scenarios. This was painted to me by somebody. I was at a conflict resolution conference in Abu Dhabi, and they were talking about a situation where you have a digital contact lens, which is showing you something about electronic health records, which have been interpreted by LLM, and the health records are on blockchain. You are in one country, you belong to a second country, and your insurance is in a third country, right? So one of the things that I foresee, which we will talk about in future episodes, is that as the lines blur between jurisdictions, between sectors, within a what is telecom, what is finance, what is AI, all of these are different regulators now. Here is a situation where everything is colliding in a single system. So I foresee that an exponential growth in terms of conflicts. Who is interpreting what regulation on what basis, and whether other stakeholders actually agree upon it or not, and especially across countries, right? When you have these five jurisdictions involved in a single thing, single incident, first they will fight it out, and I see as AI percolates into other domains, more of these are going to come. More situations are going to be presented.
No, I completely agree with you. And how I see the global community now, there is things are being discussed at a global level.
Hmm.
It's no more just
Never been
territory.
before like this. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's no more territorial. I think we saw the impact that the a impact summit got in
Hmm.
India. The conversations were purely global, and I think these are the conversations that we need to have, because end of the day, this is not for one country to govern. AI is beyond border regulation. AI
Hmm.
is borderless. Like I said, countries have to come together and come up with some form of, if not universal or uniform, some form of complementary governance, where things are not so conflicting that in one country the way this
Yeah.
particular product is being governed is completely different from the other country. Because right now, like I said, the global footprint of AI companies
I
is
think
too
some of
large.
it is just legacy from the past, right? The way we have regulated cars and phones, and I think we tried extending it to AI, and I think we are beginning to see that it fails. Now there is a recognition that there needs to be new modus vivendi around global coordination, and so I think that is for another day. We are almost up on time. Thank you very much for the audience. We are happy to have Ankita share her thoughts. We'll bring her over as events progress later in the year to talk about more situations. I'm sure we'll be busy with all the events that are going to happen. Um, we will be following this up with a number of other conversations involving geopolitics, involving data centers and conflicts, future of law. So we have a fairly packed next few sessions. Stay with us, and for now, thank you very much, Ankita. It's been my pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. Interesting times ahead. Thank you for having me.